All right, guys, Mike G here from Entrepreneur Fitness Academy. Big time excited today to have Sean Ogle from Location Rebel with us. Sean, man, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Dude, it's my pleasure. After so many years of working with you, it's nice to get to chat about this a little more publicly.
Yeah, I know. I know we've been trying to connect and make this happen for a while now, so I'm excited that we finally were able to coordinate our schedules to make it happen. So thank you, man. Hey, I'm going to read real quickly. I always read it because I always have this worry that I'm going to leave something important out. Even though I know you, I want to make sure that I introduce you, the way you deserve to be introduced. So give me a second here while I introduce you to the listeners. Sean, you are the head rebel. I love that. Head rebel at Location Rebel, which is your business, a business that helps people build a small business that gives them the freedom and flexibility to work from anywhere in the world. And literally, when you say anywhere, you mean anywhere. Guys, check out Sean's website. We'll talk about that later on, but if you see some of the places and desks and workstations he works from, I'm envious, but it's awesome. You got to check it out. Aside from that, you're a sought-out guest on many podcasts and speak at several events and conferences throughout the year. Your newest venture, which is super cool, Breaking 80, is a niche business that you've built around something you love doing that I'm terrible at, is golfing. And in fact, you actually have a goal to play the top 100 and top 100 public courses by the age of 35. And update me if I'm wrong here, but just in the last year, you have played 11 out of the top 123 out of the top 100 public courses. Is that right? Are those numbers still
Yeah,
right?
I need to go and update I basically clearly need to update everything on my golf site. So the goal is to play the top 100 in the world and the top 100 in the U.S. And I've played, as of this week, I knocked 5 more off today, or this week. I've played somewhere in the neighborhood of 42 of the top 100 in America and like 35, 36 of the top 100 in the world. So about a third of the way there.
5 in 1 week. That's awesome. If I play 5 in a year, I'm winning. But you did 5 in a week. Credit to you and the business you've created for yourself. But anyways, we'll get into that. Sean, man, thanks again for being here. I want to dive right into, because a lot of what you do, like golf, even the golf piece that you're doing right now, that quest you have for yourself, fitness comes into that. Sometimes people think, oh, you're just walking up and down and chipping putts. I mean, there's a lot that goes on, especially when you play as much as you do, which we'll definitely get into that. The work that I do, Entrepreneur Fitness Academy, I help entrepreneurs create a healthy mind, healthy body to go on and create a healthy business that they want for themselves. Whether it's a niche site like you've done with Breaking 80, whether it's Location Rebel, whatever it may be. I call it putting the health before the hustle. That's how I've kind of defined it. I want to ask you out of the gate, man, and I love this because I know why you do this, but I want to make sure our listeners understand why you do some of the things you do. For example, you generally wake up around 6 a.m. in the morning and you immediately drink a tall glass of water, which I love that you do that. I'm curious, why do you do that?
So my biggest thing is that if I'm going to have a good, productive day, it's got to start off on the right foot. And I'm terrible. I'm all about momentum. So for me, there's certain things that I do or certain habits or certain things in the morning that I know are going to lead to me doing more healthy things for myself. So basically, it's like the top domino chain. If I wake up and I have a glass of water, that's going to make me more likely to want to go make a healthy breakfast, which is going to make me more likely to want to go to the gym, which is going to make me more likely to want to knock out all the things on my to-do list. And probably most importantly, it's going to make me more likely to want to eat healthier, drink less, do all of those things later on because I made so much progress throughout the day. And I found I call them trigger habits. So that tall glass of water in the morning is a trigger to say, okay, starting the day off right, doing something healthy, now let's keep it going. And the days I don't do it are the days that I tend to not be productive, I eat worse, I drink more, et cetera, et cetera.
I love that word, man, trigger habits. Versus just triggers that. And I'm a big believer myself. I know why you do it, but I wanted others to hear it. But yeah, it triggers you to just to start. And it's just that whole saying. It's like you call it momentum. It's like, hey, how you start your day it sets the tone for the rest of the day. So you started from a healthy perspective, staying hydrated. You trigger your body, saying, hey man, take care of your body, eat well, drink water, exercise. Love that, man. Love that word, guys. The takeaway there is trigger. What can someone else, I'm asking the listeners, I keep saying readers, the listeners, what's that trigger habit for you in the morning that can get you thinking that way out of the gate?
Well, and the reason I choose a glass of water is because it's also the easiest thing to do. It's like if I say I'm going to make my trigger habit go to the gym or make breakfast, there's so many things that can get in the way of doing it. So that's why I like the glass of water, because not only, you harping on me to make sure I drink, 6 glasses a day or whatever it is, but it's the easiest thing. You wake up, you do it while you wait for your, the coffee maker to turn on or whatever you're going to do. And it's like, there's no excuse for not doing that.
I love that, man. You've said that. You've shared that with me many times over the last couple of years. It's like, hey, man, one of the things I love is just that it's small, simple habits, things that I know I can do, and which is awesome because you do them. And like you said, then that leads to momentum. You doing the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. You just said something, and actually was coming to my next, which leads right into my next question, which I love. It's like things that actually you can do that you know that work for you. And sometimes people think, hey, I got to get up at 5 a.m. and work out, and it works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. I know you, Sean, that's not your thing. And you've said it many times now. You're like, dude, I work out late morning, early afternoon. And I love that because you're going with what works for you. And you've tried the morning thing. It's like, it's not your thing. And that's cool. Question for you, though. How do you handle not getting sucked into your work and just kind of like, fires to put out as you get diving into your work that you do for that day? How do you still stay focused and manage to get away to get that exercise done in the afternoon or early, late morning? How does that work for you? How do you do that?
Totally. So I've learned to be really cognizant of like once my like morning energy is kind of run out, like I am most productive from, usually about an hour after I wake up to like 6 hours later. So if I wake up at 6, my most productive time is going to be between like, realistically like 7 and 11. And then by like 1, I'm like, I need a break. And so those days where I push through and I'm like, I'm just going to bang out work, I'm going to sit at my computer all day. Usually by 1 o'clock, I'm just kind of screwing around on the internet or whatever. And I've learned that I can like get re-engaged later on in the day, but I need to have a significant break. I need to go do something. And so I've learned that that's the time when it makes the most sense to go and work out. If I wait until like 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, by then I'm like out of work mode. I'm in like, I'm just going to chill and relax and socialize and whatever. So those times it doesn't get done. Waking up super early for me, I tend to get kind of nauseous and make me sick. And instead of energizing me, it just kind of makes me more tired throughout the day. So I found that usually once I've kind of hit that, whether it's checked everything off my to-do list or I've lost focus and I'm just not making, any progress on work, that's the best time of the day for me to go and work out. And so I put it on my calendar and I kind of block it out where it's like, on days that aren't super structured, I'll say, okay, sometime between, 11, 12 and like 2, that's when I'm going to go and work out. And I need to be cognizant of like, okay, once I've spent like 15 minutes on YouTube or something, that's a sign that I'm not being productive. And once that becomes a habit, once it's like, okay, I'm looking forward to going and working out in the afternoon. It's something I'm excited for because I know it's going to make me feel good. Then you don't really need a whole lot more motivation. It's like once you recognize, all right, I need a break. I know this is going to make me feel good. I've been drinking my water. I had a healthy breakfast. So I'm already like in the right flow. Then everything, just kind of like works like clockwork and it's like a well-oiled machine. It's when you get out of those habits that, things can tend to be a little bit more of a struggle.
Definitely. You know what I love? You know what I love that you do in there, and it sounds good in theory, but I just don't think we do it enough. It's like you actually schedule it. You actually put it in your schedule, like because it's one thing to say, Sean. It's like, hey man, I'll go work out this afternoon. But if it's not there, if it doesn't take up this box in your calendar, whatever, whether it's your phone, whether it's actual old school written one, actually schedule the damn thing because that makes it real. Like you're saying, hey, this is important for me enough to schedule it, and then sticking to it. I love that you do that, and whoever's listening, guys, it's like take the time to schedule that. It doesn't take that long, but it's almost like telling yourself this is important. I'm going to get it done. One more thing I'll say, and I love, and I'm going to repeat it because I said it earlier, Sean, is you work with what works for you, and that's what we do in Entrepreneur Fitness Academy. We're not going to tell you to work out at 5 a.m. if that's not your thing. You've clearly have tried it. You're like, dude, that's not my thing. What does work for me? And you work with that. It's like you take what works for you and you leverage the crap out of that and you make it work. Love that, man, and I love that you do that. And again, that's perfect case. That's perfect world. Now let's take the not so perfect world, right? We all, unless you're different and you're always having a kick-ass day. I'm not like that. I'm sure many people are not like that. We get into our funks.
Whatever, Mike. I'm not like that. Don't even play.
Just in case. But we all get into our funks. It's just part of life. It's just gonna happen. Personally, professionally. What's like your remedy? Is there a certain remedy? Maybe it's like, hey man, I do X, Y, and Z, or it's just one thing. Is there a remedy, something you use to get out of a funk, whether it's personally or even professionally? And what is that for you?
So there's a couple things I do. One, I try and go by the mantra or whatever. It's like some sort of physical activity every single day. So that's like, there might be days I'm in a funk and I can't motivate myself. So it's like, okay, instead of, driving the 7 minutes to my co-working space, I'm going to walk the 35 minutes to go there. And so if I get a 35-minute walk in as opposed to, doing nothing, then that's great. And even if I'm not, reaching the goals that I want to, that's still something, and it's better than nothing. I also am a big proponent of the concept of play. So like there's days where it's like, by 10, 11 o'clock, I'm like, you know what, like I am not feeling it today. Like this is like, I'm just not going to be productive. I know that. So I'll go do something fun. I'll do something I enjoy. Like for me, I'm a huge golfer. So a lot of times that's when I'll be like, all right, I'm going to go play 18 holes this afternoon, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. And obviously, that's one of the benefits that we have as entrepreneurs. If I was in a 9-to-5 day job, I wouldn't have that flexibility. But, very fortunate and privileged to have kind of built a business to the point where it's like, if I'm not feeling something, then, on a lot of days, I can say, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to go do this thing that I enjoy. And almost always, not only am I getting a little bit of exercise while I'm out there, but while I'm doing that, say it's on a Tuesday afternoon, it helps me realize, hey, you are very privileged to be able to do this. This isn't something many people get to do. You're out golfing at, 3 o'clock on a Tuesday or whatever. Mm-hmm. And almost always by the time I'm done with that, and it might not be golf, it might be having coffee with a friend. It might be, going on some sort of other adventure or a hike or something. But almost always by the time I'm done with that, I am re-energized, re-motivated, re-interested in working on my business and kind of, snapping me out of that funk, because oftentimes the funk is because of laziness or lack of direction or, just taking for granted what you have. So when you kind of go consciously say, I'm going to go and do this thing that I enjoy, that, a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to do, that's where it's like, all right, so time to stop taking this for granted and get back to work.
Man, there's so much value in there. I could just break down three big things you said. Just real quickly, the one I like out of the gate, man, you said, hey, you know what? I'm going to at least walk that 35 minutes. It's almost like you put yourself in movement. I'm the same way, man. Sometimes I have like a 10-mile run I have to do for my training. I don't want to do it. We all have those days. But as soon as, like you said, hey, I get myself up and going, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to walk down the street, walk to get a car. Like you get yourself moving, and then before you know it, it's like, hey man, you're actually feeling like a little more alive. And hey, there's plenty of science behind that. We know that. Quickest way to change your psychology, what you think, whether you want to go for that run and get the work done, is to change your physiology with movement. So love that you do that, man. You actually take a walk to where you work, your co-working space, and that changes you. And I love what you said too, and you put it another way. Say, hey, I'd rather get something done. I call it getting some better than none. Sean, you and I talk about this all the time. Sean, yeah. some stuff versus nothing. Some is better than none. So I love that concept. Like in Entrepreneur Fitness Academy, we always say, show up, work hard. And I love the third one is have fun. Because you were like, dude, sometimes I need just to break away. So sometimes just get out of it. So I love that you do that. And good for you, man, for pointing out that you don't have to feel guilty about it. It's like you worked your tail off to get to where you are. So now you can do that. So do it. So good for you,
sure.
Man,
And it kind of goes back to the trigger habits as well. It's like, whether it's walking to a co-working space or simply just walking around the block, that's something that I know is going to be positive for me.
Absolutely.
It's going to get me out of my element. It's going to take me away from what I'm doing. So that's just another example of something. It's like, okay, like even if I go walk half a mile around the block, you come back and you're like, all right, I'm feeling pretty good. Let's do something else that's going to be positive for me. So it's about recognizing for you, what those things are that are going to kind of help get you, build you some positive momentum that aren't overly difficult to do.
And there's that word again, momentum. I was just going to mention that again. Like same thing. You start in the morning with that, glass of water, gives you momentum. You're in a funk, you go for that walk or whatever, that quick run, and that builds your momentum to get the next thing done. So there's that word again, guys. That small thing that's going to stop building. That's going to, start creating that snowball to get bigger and bigger and be able to do more. Love that share, Sean. I appreciate that, man. So here comes a question. It's just like, some people think it's like, kind of cliche, the whole why thing. I just want to know, we're all driven for different reasons. So I want to know, and I know you, but I want listeners here, what's your why, man? Why do you do what you do at Location Rebel? Why do you do what you do for yourself? What's your big why of why you do what you do?
For me, Frank, I don't know if this is a good answer or not, but it's kind of the truth. It all comes down to one word, and it's happiness. I want to help, I want to do the things that make me happy in life, whatever that is. But the coolest part about Location Rebel is I've been able to help people build things that have allowed them to live happier lives. Back when I was working as a financial analyst, I was miserable, and I kind of recognized I wasn't going to be able to make a positive impact in other people's lives until I took responsibility for what I was doing, made myself happy. So I left my job in finance. I moved to Thailand for a year. I, learned how to build online businesses and then kind of said, hey, this worked for me. Maybe this will work for other people. And that's how Location Rebel got started. And I created a course that's essentially just, hey, this worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it won't. But with the whole purpose of being able to help people build happier lives through entrepreneurship and, helping them build lifestyle businesses that allow them to get out from behind a desk or a day job or working for a boss that they don't like, having a little bit more freedom to simply do the things that they enjoy doing and spend the time with the people that they enjoy spending time with. And I think frankly, that's what it all comes down to. It's like, if I can help people do more of the things that make them happy, then they're going to be able to have a more positive impact on the world, and it kind of spreads from there. So that's kind of what keeps me motivated. Not only, other people's happiness, but my own as well, and just kind of continuing to do the things that I enjoy. And that's kind of it.
I love that, man. I love that. We share a lot of similar visions and philosophies, and that's definitely one of them, man. You do it for you want to help others just achieve that happiness, what they can do more of that makes them happy. I love that. I've known you personally now for a couple of years, Sean, and I've known you even before that for some years, and that's always from the moment I found you and until now. It's like that's always been just that message. Whether you're just reading your stuff, the work you do, the course you offer, which I've taken, it's apparent in everything you do that's exactly what you're out to do, and that's one of the many things I respect, admire, and really love about you, man. So thanks for sharing that with us and for the work you do. It's super cool, man. It's super awesome, and it is making a difference. I want to ask, though, because a lot of the things you do, which are super awesome, like you quit your job, move to Thailand, start these businesses, it's awesome. With it, call it entrepreneurship, comes fear, doubt, stress, anxiety. That sometimes still it hounds all of us. How do you handle that? Do you use exercise? How do you handle the fear, that stress, that anxiety that comes with building something big, something that you believe in? Like you just had a recent launch of Location Rebel a couple of weeks ago, I think. That's a big thing. You're out to serve people. Like, how do you handle that stress and anxiety and fear that comes with that, failing, whatever it may be? How do you handle that?
Absolutely. I think one is kind of constantly asking yourself, what's the worst case scenario? And with what I'm doing, what are the odds of that worst case scenario coming to pass? And just being very aware of that. So when I left my job and moved to Thailand, I was like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Like, all right, like I come back broke and I have to go back and get a job at McDonald's. Is that the end of the world? No, you go and you do it, and I'll have a crazy adventure to be able to, tell my kids later on. Are the chances of that happening very high? No, probably not. So the worst case scenario really isn't that big of a deal. I think the other thing is understanding one word. I believe that there is only one thing in the entire world that people are truly afraid of, and that's uncertainty. So you're not afraid of whether or not a spider is going to bite you. You're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding whether or not it's going to bite you. Or it's like you're not afraid of the spider. You're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding that bite. You're not afraid of the dark. You're afraid of the uncertainty surrounding what lives in the shadows. And I think that there's kind of three elements of uncertainty. So the first is fearing it. And this is where 95% of people will always live. So Tim Ferriss had a quote a while back that said, most people will choose unhappiness over uncertainty. So people might be at a point where, they have an okay life. It's all right. It's not something they're super excited about. They're not living their dream life, but it's okay. It's comfortable. Most people will take that rather than take the risk and, associated with pursuing that uncertainty and pursuing that big thing. The second stage of uncertainty is overcoming it. So when I quit my job and moved to Thailand, that was me saying, I'm still terrified and I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm going to do this anyway. So I'm going to overcome that uncertainty. And then finally, the most important step, and I think this is what allows me to kind of get over that fear, is embracing the uncertainty. And this is where all successful entrepreneurs, reside, where they say, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I can make anything I want happen. And uncertainty is an asset. It's something where, I see something out there that I have the potential to change, and I can take advantage of that and turn it into a business. And I think kind of cultivating that mindset and going through that process mentally is one of the most valuable things that people can do. And I think if you kind of take that mindset where it's like, I'm not gonna fear it, I'm gonna embrace it, and I'm gonna overcome it. That's kind of the powerful way that entrepreneurs can kind of get over some of those apprehensions.
I hope everyone who's listened to this literally rewinds it back and just listens to that, man, because I actually might do it myself a couple more times. That is solid. Those three three key points you hit upon, man, when it comes to uncertainty. And you could not be more right, Sean, that uncertainty. Every time myself personally, whenever I'm scared of taking action on something, it's because of the unknown. Like, hey, man, what's going to happen? You could not be more right. There's a story I've heard, you probably heard it, where I forgot, there was like some prisoner or whatnot, and there was two doors, and one's like, dude, if you go through that door, this is how you'll be executed. And the other door, like, you don't know what's behind it. You could be mauled by lions. You don't know. It could be 10 times worse death, or it could be freedom. And the guy still chooses, well, because that door is still, there's uncertainty. They still choose. They rather have the death that they know how they're dying versus like, and on the other side of that door, he's like, well, by the way, he chose this door. He goes, well, I'm going to die anyways. What was on the other side of that door? And it was like, it was freedom. So it's almost like that whole idea. It's like, we'll choose knowing versus the unknown because of what's potentially behind that door. You're so spot on, man. That's so powerful, which is probably why you built that very first course you did, right? Wasn't it like overcoming uncertainty? That was one of the courses you built, right?
Yeah, overcoming the fear of uncertainty was kind of the very first thing that I ever created, very first premium product. And it was simply because that was what I was going through in my own life. And I was like, guaranteed, there's got to be some other people that are going through the same thing right now. And it's tough because, when you're trying to build courses, you're trying to solve problems people know they have. And most people don't realize that their problem is that they're afraid of that uncertainty. It's not like they're like, really wish there was a course out there that would help me overcome this uncertainty I've got. And so, so I'm not sure it was as successful as it could have been, but it's also really valuable. So one thing for people that are, kind of going through this process and they're kind of maybe having an aha moment, they're like, yeah, uncertainty is holding me back.
Yeah.
I would say is like kind of start and say, okay, what are you afraid of? So it's like, are you, afraid of, not being able to pay your rent? And then say, okay, why are you afraid of that? And then say, all right, well, I'm afraid of that because I don't want my landlord to get mad at me. I don't want my, parents to think, I'm not capable of supporting myself. And then keep breaking that down and saying, okay, why this all the way down, and then start building it back up. So it's like, once you kind of get down to that point, it's like, okay, well, how can I solve this concern? So I'm afraid of my parents, not thinking I can support myself. So, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with my parents about what I want to do and my concerns so that we help alleviate that process. And then you kind of start working all the way back up. So now all of those issues and all of those little uncertainties that are surrounding your major fear, you've now got answers to all of those solutions. So I don't know if that makes sense or if I explain that well, but that's kind of what I try and help people through, is they're trying to figure out, how to overcome those fears and start taking next steps.
No, that makes perfect sense. And why I love that, Sean, is because I'm all about practicality, especially in Entrepreneur Fitness Academy. It's one thing in theory and, thinking high level, pie in the sky. And there's one thing, well, how do I apply this? How do I make this practical? And you just did that. We always say, hey, feel the fear and do it anyways. Yeah, okay, I get it. But how do I do that? And you just said it. Hey, break it down, man. Just say there's 5 things. Okay, here's the 5 things. And now how do I address each one? That is so practical. Guys, if you'll listen, there you go. That's break it down. Like, hey, what's the worst case? Whatever. There's 30 things. Address all 30, but break it down just like Sean explained. I love that, man. I love that whole. And now let me ask you because, and then I want to move on here, but because this is important, because sometimes does that still happen for you? Do you still get that fear of uncertainty? Is that because expectation is everything, or is that something that you now feel but you're able to get past quickly because you've done it so many times? How does that work for you now?
Oh, no, I think everybody is still going to, have those uncertainties and those fears. As you're thinking about making major life changes, whether it's like I'm kind of in the process where my wife and I are talking about having kids, we're getting ready to take a 2-month trip around the world. There's all of these things that are going off because you're kind of trying to figure out, it's like, okay, like, how do we move forward with this? What's the best way to do it? And so I'll do that on a regular basis. So it's like, okay, well, I know this trip's going to be pretty expensive. So that's got me a little bit stressed out. I'm like, maybe we shouldn't do it because it's going to cost a lot of money. And so I say, okay, well, how can I alleviate that stress? How can I relieve that burden? It's like, all right, well, let's create a budget. Let's, figure out how much we think it's going to cost. And then start breaking that down and say, okay, well, we think it's going to cost this. So let's, try and, plan accordingly. So it's like, if you have a plan, then all of a sudden, all that uncertainty kind of starts to go away a little bit and you can move forward feeling good about it. And so, I mean, that's kind of a, maybe not a daily occurrence, but there's always things that are coming up in your life, no matter who you are, how successful you are, where you have to kind of deal with those issues. So I just always try and take kind of that same practical approach, break it down, address what that underlying uncertainty or fear is, and then start answering all the questions. So you kind of come back up and you got a solid plan together.
I appreciate you sharing that, man, because sometimes that's exactly the thought, Sean. It's like, hey, if you're far along your journey, whatever it may be, financially, professionally, physically, that you don't have those uncertain moments anymore, which is complete BS. Of course, they're still there. You just said it yourself. Conversation of kids, conversation of travel, it comes up. So, but I love that what you do. You take your own. You don't just say this advice and not take it. You actually do what you've just suggested doing, which is breaking it down and addressing it. And it always seems to work. I mean, it works for me. It seems like it's working for you. And I love that you've shared that, man, because it's been a biggie for me. It still is occasionally. So thanks for sharing that, man. I think this kind of wraps into what I'm about to ask you, and you tell me. When it comes to like one of the big things we do in Entrepreneur Fitness Academy, Sean, is I call it successful goal setting. You just created this new niche site, Breaking 80. I mean, maybe we can use that. Maybe we can use another example. You tell me. When it comes to you're about to create something new, different. Like, what does successful goal setting look like for you? How would you define it in your world? How do you use it?
Totally. So the big thing for me is so many people like to make big, lofty goals. It's one of those things where it's like, I get people all the time that are like, I want to quit my job and make $10,000 a month. And they think that they can just, do that, in a month. And obviously it's not that simple. So it's one of those things that I tell people, instead of having one big lofty goal where you work on that for maybe 6 months, and if you're still not there, all you're seeing is a big, like 0 out of 1. It's like you're batting, 0%. So I like to, kind of look at a method that I call the milestone mindset. So instead of making that one big lofty goal, have like 50 smaller goals that you can like track on a, daily, weekly, monthly basis that are going to prove, or even if you haven't reached that one, major overarching goal, you've still made progress along the way. So if someone's thinking about starting an online business, you might have, milestone goals that are, buy your first domain, install WordPress, write your first blog post, make your first $1, all of these different things. So at the end of, 6 months, you're like, okay, I'm still not at this, major one thing, but I've, done 32 out of the 50 goals that I've got. I'm 60% of the way to my goal as opposed to, 0% of the way. And so that's the big way I look at it. I kind of say, you know what, let's, again, getting really practical with it. Let's break this down into something that's manageable, that's easily trackable, and is going to help us, build confidence as opposed to just beat us down every time we're not able to do something.
I love that, and the more you talk about it, Sean, the more I realize, because you've been a big influencer in the work I do, and it's funny because the way I kind of roll with Entrepreneur Fitness Academy is exactly that same methodology philosophy, where it's like, hey man, the small steps, keep checking those boxes because it gives you momentum to take the next. It's funny because that's how you roll in your course with Location Rebel, as far as what I've seen in the past, and that's the way we do it. It's like that small step, and I love how you put it. Like it's like you're batting 0, because if you just gauging it off that one big goal, whatever, make $3,000 a month, or be able to have, whatever, 10,000 subscribers. If this is nothing along the way to check the box, then man, you kind of feel like shit for a while. And maybe,
exactly.
And I think you put it, Sean, there was a quote, I can't remember what it was, but it was like a quote that I saw some other podcast you did where it said, hey man, there's something about doing the small things because it allows you to check the box and it makes you feel good. It builds momentum to do that next thing. It's kind of like everything we've been saying. So even your glass of water in the morning, you're already checking that box. It's like, dude, you're at 100% first thing in the morning. Glass of water, check. Health, bam. And it gives you momentum for the next one, right?
Exactly. And like that same kind of thing, you can look at it, you can take the same kind of concept and look at it, on like a big yearly macro basis or on like a small daily micro basis. I've got on my to-do list, do 5 minutes of stretching, drink 4 glasses of water today. And it's like, you check off, like I've got a sub checklist for my water. So always get 1 right in the morning. So you're already making progress on that to-do list.
Yep.
Usually right after I do that, I'll go and stretch for 5 minutes. It's like, boom. So you're already like, kind of like, I feel like as humans, we just have an innate need to want to like check boxes and, get things done. And so, if you can start the process, then it's going to make that much easier to finish the process. And, that's something that a lot of people aren't able to do.
Completely agree, man. The small steps always, when you add them up, they always become the big steps. I call it compounding health. Like people understand compounding interest, right? The little bit every week, month, it adds up, exponentially over years. Same thing with compounding health. Those little things you do daily add up weekly, monthly, yearly. I mean, shit, it adds up big time. So I love that you share that, Sean. So I appreciate that goal setting piece. Let's dive in more though now into that actually health fitness stuff. Like Jim Rohn, I love the guy. There's tons of stuff that I love that he says, his quotes, his work. One of the things that he says, his quote, and I love it. It's like, hey man, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. It's like you get one body, man. I love that. I'm curious, and I know, share with the listeners if you don't mind, how do you take care of your body, whether it's on a weekly basis, whether it's on a daily basis? What's that schedule look like for you, man?
So one, sleep has never been an issue for me. I love to sleep. I'm not one of those guys that's like only getting 4 hours of sleep a day. So I think that's one of the, big things it starts with is I don't set an alarm, usually unless I'm traveling or have, things to do early in the morning. So I just wake up when it's natural. So usually I feel really rested. And then for me, the biggest thing is I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's like I get bored. I need to kind of mix it up. So for me, a lot of my, health and fitness is a matter of, one, just kind of building it into the lifestyle, and two, recognizing that, if all I'm going to do is go run on the treadmill, or all I'm going to do for 6 days is go lift weights, like I'm just going to get bored and probably stop doing it. But if I can mix in a lot of things and kind of have a more holistic, health plan, then not only am I more likely to do it, but I'm going to enjoy it more in the process. So, I might go rock climbing once or twice a week. I'll go lift weights 2 or 3 times a week. I'll go for a run, 2 or 3 times a week, all depending on the week. Around the golf, like people knock it for, not being exercise. And that's true if you're riding around in a cart, but if you walk around a golf, especially, one with a lot of hills, it's a 5 to 7 mile walk. So you do that on a regular basis, that kind of helps, just kind of keeps your metabolism going and things like that. So, I think that's the kind of key to my success, because I know I'm not someone that just wants to do the same thing day in and day out. So if I can mix it up and do things that I start to look forward to, I'm going to have, much greater chance of success over the long term.
Yeah, and I come back to what you said earlier. I love that you take what works for you, man. And I love that, because we try to preach that as much as we can with the clients I work with, person one-on-one, and even in the academy, Entrepreneur Fitness Academy. It's like, what works for you? Like you work late morning, early afternoon. That's when you get your workouts done. You don't like the same thing over and over. Some people like it. They want to know what they're doing every day, the same thing. They don't want to have to think about it, and they work with that. So guys, I love, so if there's a takeaway here, it's like, what works for you, do that. If your 4 friends have a way they do it, you don't have to do it their way. Do it the way that works for you, that's going to get you doing it regularly. Sean wants variety, he gets variety. And you and I have our conversations, and we're always trying to strategize about things we can do differently. Sometimes we do them, sometimes we don't, but we're always kind of giving ourselves options. So love that, man. Thanks for that share. I appreciate it. I want to know, and you kind of started going a little bit into this, how do you believe exercise, taking care of yourself, physically, drinking that water, eating healthy, exercising, how do you believe that, helps your business? Does it? And if so, how? And I know you've written about this tons of times on your blog, but I want others to hear it right now. How does staying active, physically active, how does that help your business?
Yeah. So, and this comes back to one of the very first conversations we ever had when we, started working together. And you said, why do you want to get in shape? Why do you want to do this? And, I simply said, it's like the key to success in my business, the way I'm going to be successful. Like if you said, what's the most valuable thing you can do for your business right now? I would say build habits around eating healthy and working out and getting exercise. Because once I've done that and I've got the confidence, it helps my mental clarity. It helps me, feel like I've got control over things. There's those times where, you go through phases where you can't motivate yourself to do anything and you're not going to work out and you're eating like crap. Those are the times where if I'm feeling that way, that's going to translate to my business, especially considering I'm a solopreneur. I've got one, community manager that, is kind of my right-hand girl that does, a lot of stuff for me. But other than that, it's just me. If I'm not pushing things forward, then things aren't going to get done. And so when I'm eating healthy, when I'm working out, that gives me the motivation to say, hey, I can get this stuff done. It kind of goes back to the idea of those trigger habits. Like if I'm doing that on a daily basis, I know that I'm going to get more stuff done. And that all starts with drinking water, eating, working out. It's like all of those basic things you learned when you were in kindergarten, are so true. And so I fully believe that my success in business is a direct reflection of how well I'm taking care of myself. And so, I would, I think it's a much better investment to say, okay, I'm going to spend $2,500 on a trainer and a nutritionist or something like that, as opposed to $2,500 on a business coach. Because I know that if I get that, the basic fundamentals done, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel confident, and that's going to translate over to all the different stuff I do.
Man, I love that. I love what you just said there, man. And not just because this is the world I work in, and this is, the entrepreneurs is, that's who I service, and I want to help them build a healthy foundation of health and wellness to go on to do bigger things for themselves. But I love what you said. That word you used there, Sean, is transfer. I just recently interviewed Charlie Gilkey as well. He said he used the same word, transferability. Like what you do with exercise and eating, it transfers into like the other aspects of your life. personally, professionally, your relationships, financially, whether it's like the discipline or the commitment, the focus, whatever it may be, how it transfers. You build those habits, like you said, or that foundation, and that transfers into everything else you do. I love that,
Absolutely.
man. Love that. And that one piece, which brings me, and again, I'm going to harp on that because I love what you said. If you don't mind, let's dig into that. You just said, hey, man, if I'm going to spend 2,500, and that's you don't even have to spend that much, guys, if you're listening. But like Sean's saying, hey, man, if I'm going to invest, I would invest in myself. Because I was going to ask you, Sean, what's been the biggest benefit? Like, you and I have worked together now for a while, and again, I just want to hear. Pretend I wasn't here, but of course I am. Like, what's been that biggest benefit for you? Like, why would anyone invest in a health and wellness coach? What's that big investment been for you, for investing the time and energy and effort that you and I, the work we've done together?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like a reassurance and it proving to myself that I can do it. Like I've always, one of the big things I struggle with is just being social and eating and drinking. And, I've got a social lifestyle. I'm going out and doing things a lot. And there's been conversations where I was like, I legitimately don't think I, can not go out 4 nights a week and eat all the good food and have all the good cocktails and all that stuff. And I've really struggled with that. And so, now that I've seen, like right now, I'm in Philadelphia. I've been traveling all week. I've been keeping my diet in check. We haven't caught up about this, but it's like I've been keeping my diet in check. I've had like 1 drink the entire time I've been traveling.
Yeah.
And this makes me sound like an alcoholic, but it's more just like a social thing. It's like that's what you do when you go out with friends and whatnot. And, there was periods of time where I was like, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to, have a club soda when I'm out with groups of people that are, all like, drinking beers and cocktails and doing those things. I can't moderate my food. When I go to a really good restaurant and I want to order everything and eat everything, and I've kind of proven I've been able to do that. So I think that's one of the biggest things is like there was that doubt where for so long I was like, I'm not sure if I can handle this. I'm not sure if I've got the willpower and the discipline to do it. I think discipline is kind of the key word there. And then, talking with you and with the strategies that you've helped give me, realizing it's like, hey, you can have that discipline. You can do it. And, that lesson and that confidence, I mean, that transfers into every aspect of your life, not just, eating and drinking and working out.
Sure, and you know what I love too, Sean, is sometimes we, whether it's creating an online business, whether it's a niche site, whether it's fitness, it doesn't happen overnight, period. It's just the way it is. And you and I, it's been a couple of years, but it's interesting because like you said, we've had some conversations, and at the beginning, it was like, hey man, I don't think I can do this. And it was kind of a struggle, and we went up and down. But if you look at the graph, say there was a graph in front of us for the 2 years, say we've been working together, like if we started down low, man, you're up here. But the only way that's possible is because you haven't been perfect. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But you have continued to make progress, and that's what it's all about, man. Whether it's an Entrepreneur Fitness Academy, whether it's in Location Rebel, the folks you serve, it's constantly sticking to it, giving it effort. Of course, you're going to fall off. No one's perfect, but what I love about you, Sean, is that you keep coming back to, okay, well, how can I get better? Damn it, this didn't work. What must I do to make that better? And the more you strive to be better and perfect, the more progress you keep making. So I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that with us, because sometimes we think, oh, well, if I'm going to be perfect, there's no falling. No, it's BS. Of course you're going to fall.
Well, and the biggest key to it all is being willing to be honest with yourself. Yeah. And like, I'll come back after a trick and be like, hey, Mike, like I ate a lot, I drank a lot, I didn't work out as much as I was supposed to, and being willing to say, hey, I screwed up, as opposed to just lying to you and be like, oh yeah, everything's great, and lying to yourself and it's like, oh yeah, I went for that 1 2-mile run, like I nailed it. And if you can be honest with yourself and be like, hey, I really could have done and should have done a lot better, then that's what's going to help you continue to get better over time. It's like, hey, this trip didn't work, but like I'm home now, let's get back into a healthy routine. 2 weeks from now, I've got another trip. So we're going to take everything I learned and we're going to put together a plan beforehand. And I mean, I know that's something you're big on. It's like, let's plan for this. Let's make sure that, we're giving you all of the tools to make sure that, you are able to make good choices as opposed to, falling off. Like, you're going to be social, you're going to be going out to eat, you're going to be doing all those things. So let's have contingencies in place. So it's like, if you do take that one night, you go out and eat too much or whatever, exactly what you're going to do the next day to help compensate for it.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. Planning ahead, and again, going right back to this is kind of like an overlying story. It's like, dude, this is your lifestyle. This is what you have. This is what you do. This is what you've created. This is what you want. So we're not, Sean, every time we talk, we're not saying, hey, don't do X, Y, and Z anymore. Don't go travel. Don't do this. Don't be social. Don't have your, fancy cocktails you like to have. You enjoy doing that. We're not telling you to stop. We're just, well, how can that coexist in a healthy lifestyle? So again, that's the biggie, guys. It's about doing what works for me. Here's what I want. Okay, well, now how do I plug in being healthy, mindset, body-wise, whatever it may be. I love that you do that. But again, it's a constant work in process. We can't think that, right? You and I are gonna have 2 conversations and you're freaking solid for the rest of the year. It's a constant, right? Constantly.
It's a constant battle.
Yeah.
And so you made a lot of progress and recognizing like there's always going to be room for improvement.
Sure.
You're always going to make mistakes. There's always going to be times where you aren't as good as you want to be. And then saying, okay, but not letting that kind of put you into a downward spiral.
Yes.
Like, hey, yeah, I screwed this up, today or this week, but it's like, now's the time. It's like, all right, let's turn this around before it gets out of hand. And I think that's been one of the biggest things I've learned over the last couple of years is like, before it'd be like, okay, it's like downward spiral. All right, well, let's just keep this going. And now I'm able to stop myself and say, hey, okay, well, that was a lot of fun, but it was terrible for my body. So let's, kind of say, hit the refresh button and stop the skid and start building it back up again.
No question. You've been awesome at doing that. So I appreciate, I've given the effort, but it's a two-way street. You've given the effort right back, and that's why we've been as successful as we have been. I want to shift just a couple more questions, man. I appreciate the time here. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, you're one of the best at what you do for a lot of reasons. If you had to give advice to an entrepreneur coming up right now, they're trying to come up with some ideas they have, and they're working out, they're where they need to be. And what's something you can share with them? Like, hey, man, if I was starting over again, whatever, 6-7 years ago when you started, maybe longer now at this point, what's that one piece of advice that you'd give yourself, or maybe even someone up and coming right now that's starting their journey? What would that be?
It all comes down to one word: consistency. No matter what it is you're doing, what you're trying to build, whether you're trying to work on your diet, whether you're trying to work out, whether you're building a business, it all comes down to consistency. I don't know anyone that has put in consistent effort over a 2-year period in their online business that hasn't had a certain level of success, made at least a little bit of money, made progress. And so often that's where I see people fail, where it's like they get really excited about a big idea or their new business or whatever. And, for a week or two, they're all about it. They're doing everything. And then they hit some sort of hiccup. Maybe something happens with their job, or, someone gets sick, or something happens, and then they stop, or they get frustrated and maybe they hit a roadblock in their business. They're not sure how to do it. Rather than seeking the answer and pushing through it, they stop being consistent. And then, a month later, everything is gone, and it's just that fun side project that they, tried to start one time and never happened. A little bit of effort, even if you're only able to spend, 15 minutes a day on your business, whatever it is, a little bit of effort goes a long way. Kind of goes into like everything we've been talking about with fitness, with trigger habits and all that kind of stuff. The exact same with business. You can say, I'm planning to work at least a little bit every day. There's going to be a huge, that's going to make such a huge difference over the long term. Like I said, I mean it when I said I can't think of anyone that's been consistently, active on building their business over, even a year. Like you're going to have something to show for it.
I love that. I love what you said. You said consistency, and then the second thing you said at the very beginning, you said consistency. Say over a 2-year span. You said you chose 2 years. I love that, man. It equals, results. Let's just say that. I love that because sometimes, so the formula essentially, you just said consistency plus time. Give it some time, not a week. You said 2 years, maybe it's sooner, but you said give it time equals results. Not like hack plus a weekend equals results. That doesn't work in business. That doesn't work if you want a flat stomach and lose 20 pounds. that doesn't work.
Well, and there's always hacks that can get you part of the way there, but
sure,
not necessarily over the long term. So it's like if you wanted to lose 10 pounds in the next 72 hours, there's probably super unhealthy ways you can do it. Like,
right,
if you're a boxer and you're like trying to cut weight or something, like I'm sure there's ways you can do it.
Right.
If you're trying to build, the very basics of a business, there's lots of hacks you can do to kind of start getting things up and running. But in order to turn that into a long-term business, you have to be consistent with the effort past that. So
yes,
there's hacks that can like get you part of the way there, but you have to continue to be consistent over the long term.
Consistency, guys. Consistency. You have the long game. I couldn't agree with you more, man. Consistency. I tell myself that all the time and my clients as well. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. Hey man, last question here. I just want to know, I'm going to take the two givens away from you. Besides your health and the fact that you're here and alive and we're having this conversation, besides those two, what are you most grateful for at the very moment?
Oh, I am grateful for. Okay, here's a weird answer, but I'm just gonna say because it's probably different. I'm gonna say I'm grateful for technology because technology has made it like over the last 10 years. Like there's no way my parents would be able to do or would have been able to do what I'm doing now at my age. My whole business, my whole lifestyle, everything that I've built creates because of technology. We're able to connect and continue having this conversation. I'm able to see you right now because of technology. I'm able to travel and still FaceTime my wife and talk to her every day and like have conversations and, you know, not feel like I'm completely like deserting her because of technology. And I'm just grateful that we live in, you know, this period of time where, you know, we're able to have, you know, this freedom and this flexibility and build these businesses that are like, they've never been easier to create than right now because of all of the tools that advances in technology have given us. So, so many of the things that I'm grateful for, like, you know, obviously I'm grateful for family, my friends, all of that stuff, but I'm grateful for the fact that when I'm on the road or I'm doing things, I'm able to keep in touch with them and still have relationships with them because of technology. So, you know, that might not be the thing I'm most grateful for because obviously there's many more important things in life, but I think that, you know, it helps illustrate the point I'm trying to make.
No, absolutely. Well, you even said even with family and friends, you're able to stay in contact with your wife even when you're traveling, doing your thing. And man, it's crazy how you can just run a whole business. You can do so just, you know, it fits in the palm of your hand, your phone. It's just insane, you know. And I agree with you. I haven't heard that answer from the interviews I've done, but I love it, man. I love that a lot.
Well, that's why I figured that would be a little bit different than the generic answer. So,
oh, I love that. I love that. Sean, man, this has been awesome. I always love talking to you, man. And the fact that we were able to record this now and I'll be able to share this with, you know, the community. I'm just super grateful, man. If people want to find out more about you, about Sean Ogle, about Location Rebel, about Breaking 80, everything you're up to, whatever you're doing, where would you direct them? Where can they find you?
Yeah, easiest place is locationrebel.com. You know, that's kind of the hub for all of the, you know, main business I do. If you happen to be into golf, you can check out breaking80.com with 80 spelt out, or Instagram at breaking80 with 80 spelt out, or at Sean Ogle, SEANOGLE. Those are the places that I'm most active and, you know, always happy to answer any questions about anything. So you can reach me at Sean@locationrebel.com.
Yeah, Sean's one of the best guys at getting back to people. That's one of the things I noticed about you from the very beginning. You're just very engaged with your community, the people you serve. I love that. And I definitely suggest people checking out your Instagram Breaking 80 page because the pictures you post from some of the courses you play are ridiculous. It's like they should all be in the golf magazines. They're like money. They're so nice. So yeah, check out Sean, guys, on Instagram. Hey man, thanks again so much for this interview. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you again soon, man. I know you're traveling a bunch, but I hope at some point we get to connect in person and spend more time.
Dude, I know. It's definitely going to happen sooner rather than later.
Definitely will. Thanks again, Sean. Appreciate it, man. Cheers.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep.